Property ownership comes with a lot of questions, and when damage happens, those questions get a lot more serious. Restoration 101 is a resource for property owners, managers, and industry professionals who want straight answers about the restoration process, the insurance process, and how to make smart decisions when it counts. This is Restoration 101, brought to you by Restoration 1 of Austin.
Restoration 1, this is Robert. I am VP of Development, and I'm with
Anna. I am Construction Project Manager.
Oh, how long have you been with Restoration 1 of Austin?
I've been here for about a year and a half.
Tell me how you got here.
I was working in the mitigation industry back south, down south in the Valley area.
All right.
And just wanted to move up to Austin and start something new.
How long were you doing it down there?
Going on 2 years, yeah.
In what capacity?
I was working as an estimator for both mitigation and construction.
Okay.
Estimating around for all the Valley area from Laredo all the way to Bronzeville and the South Padre Island
Okay,
area.
so you did both. You did both mitigation and construction.
Construction estimating, yeah.
All right. Up to this point, we've covered a few things on the different podcasts. We've covered entry-level stuff on the mitigation side, what a mitigation project looks like, some of the hurdles that a homeowner might face. We've covered with Taylor on the invoicing side, some of the things that insurance companies look for that a homeowner needs to prepare on the invoicing side for claims. We haven't gotten into the reconstruction portion of it yet. So that's why we've got you here. Restoration is broken up into two bundles, into two different divisions. So restoration is mitigation, which is the removal of affected material, drying out the structure. And that typically is between, let's just say, 3 to 5 days. That is a high priority for insurance companies, so they're really quick to get a lot of the stuff done at that particular point in time because it's very time sensitive. And after that is completed, mitigation PMs, or the restoration company, gets their mitigation package together, sends it over to the insurance. Then that sets the table for the second phase, which is the reconstruction phase. In our world that we've dealt with on insurance in particular, the second part of it isn't as time sensitive as the first part.
Right.
And so that's when a lot of frustration comes in with the homeowner because all of a sudden it's no longer time sensitive for a carrier. And so there's a lot of things that start to take hold, and there's a lot of back and forth with insurance companies on the reconstruction side. So you've done both mitigation and reconstruction. First off, tell me what the client's going to be looking at on estimates. After mitigation is completed, tell me what that process looks like for getting the ball rolling.
So the pattern I started looking when I started estimating the construction only side is typically by the time, the file was in my hands already and I started working on it, it's sort of around the same time the mitigation was being finalized and invoiced.
Yeah.
So it gave me time. What insurance typically does is they send their construction estimate based off of preliminary scope they notice on their walkthroughs. So sometimes clients already have that preliminary scope of work.
Okay.
Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to be the final estimate, right?
Right.
Why? Because sometimes when the adjuster walks, there's potentially cabinets are damaged. They don't need to be removed. They attempt to dry, mitigation department attempts to dry them. They don't necessarily achieve it. They end up removing them. What happens is, these changes and modifications to the scope of work can be requested as a supplement. However, as long as we have, all the necessary documentation to request those updates in the scope.
Okay. So basically a couple things. You mentioned adjuster. So typically on reconstruction projects, whenever it gets to the recon phase, will carriers you typically send out an adjuster to do a site walk?
Most of the times, yes, that is the case. Not necessarily always.
Okay.
It depends on the carrier. It depends on, your field. If your desk adjuster has a field adjuster they work with, sometimes they send a TPA, which is a third party adjuster,
Okay.
to do their scopes of work. However, I always like to send out our scope of work. I always request our clients to send over what they received from their carrier because if the scope isn't complete, sometimes what happens is clients see their initial scope for the reconstruction from their adjusters, and then they receive our estimate, and it's not even compared. Like there's no comparison in the scope of work.
They're not even similar.
They're not even similar, exactly. It happens a lot, and this is what I was mentioning earlier, where the field adjuster goes before even demolition starts. So they're doing the minimal scope of work there is.
Okay.
So the reason I request for our clients to send over what they have is so I can review what has already been accounted for and then easily just submit. What happens is on the insurance side, there's always two departments. Typically, a mitigation department handles the mitigation and reconstruction handles, same as us, right? We have the mitigation department, the reconstruction department.
Same thing on the insurance side.
Exactly. So you can easily request, hey, you missed this. Send the pictures that the cabinet was actually removed, that it wasn't detached, that it wasn't salvaged, stuff like that, and it can easily be approved. Because for reconstruction, the scope of work is what it is.
Right.
Like you will need, say they remove the carpet, you need the carpet to be replaced if it was removed. Sometimes they'll just include to relay it, but the carpet's not there. Sometimes adjusters don't know this, and clients are worried that because they have already received their construction estimate or their scope of work from their insurance, they think that there's no way of, having that updated.
Right. So now typically will the homeowner receive a scope of work from their carrier before an adjuster walk has happened, or do they wait for the adjuster walk to happen to actually verify that what the scope is?
I'd say it depends because, sometimes some insurance carriers don't have these field adjusters. So what they do is they work off of the mitigation scope of work.
All right. So they use the mitigation bundle to set the table for what needs to be rebuilt on the rebuild
exactly.
side.
Yeah.
And the whole goal for a carrier is to get it back to pre-loss.
Correct.
And so whenever you touched on something there on carpet, so there's a huge difference. Most people either have carpet, they have tile, and they're going to have some type of either legitimate old hardwood floors, which is a whole nother thing. And then they're going to have what's called either laminate flooring or engineered flooring.
Correct.
That sits on top of a moisture barrier and then kind of floats around. Run us through the process on the obstacles or the higher price points that typically happens with flooring, with carpet and depreciation, and how carriers look at flooring.
So the way carriers typically, what I've seen is, and this can vary by carrier. Also, it's very policy dependent.
Okay.
When there is damage that affects your flooring, say your flooring needs to be removed, it depends on what type of policy you have. If either the continuous flooring will be removed throughout the entire property, or up to door thresholds.
Okay, so that's typically stated inside the declarations on the policy.
Yeah, but as long as I always, what I sometimes do with my clients is at the end of the day, we're only the contractors. We can't do much for them regarding policy situations.
The policy is what the policy is.
Exactly. So I do sometimes have my clients talk to either their agents regarding the policy, if they're okay with obviously they've been paying for that policy, right?
Sure.
They
absolutely
have that service, but they're not really aware and they're not educated on what they're purchasing or what they're paying for regarding their house. So sometimes when it comes to flooring, the policy you're paying is what it is. Sometimes I suggest my clients to either talk to their agents, make sure that the policy language, because insurance language is not as easy to understand.
Sure.
I would say especially if you're not in the industry, you really have no idea.
Right. I mean, it's all industry terminology.
Exactly.
And so unless you know what it is, you're not going to make any sense of it.
And what happens a lot with insurance is your insurance adjuster, your assigned adjuster is going to tell you, hey, this is what your policy states, but it could be what your policy states. But I always recommend my clients confirm with their agents that that is what they've been paying. If that is the case, then there's nothing you can do about it. Hey, let's replace your flooring up to the thresholds.
Right.
If they're getting approval for a full flooring replacement, then let's go ahead and do that. Now, what happens a lot, and what I do recommend my clients is, hey, you have this water damage. Would you be interested in doing an upgrade?
Sure.
To your flooring?
Yeah, which is a whole nother thing. But before we get onto that one, on the estimating side of the scope of work side, your whole goal is to work with the homeowner, provide the information on the scope of work on the recon side, work with the insurance carrier to get on board with the carrier that the scopes do match. So then you can see what's adequately covered and see what their declarations are in there. Let's be clear here. They want to get the house back to pre-loss. Right? The insurance carrier could be saying, "Hey, man, you need new squirrels in your engine," and you kind of have to. All right, I need new squirrels in my engine, man, because my car's broken. And the same thing with flooring and everything else. That's just flooring. So on carpet, because a lot of people do have carpet. If carpet is damaged and needs to be removed, how does that factor in on reimbursement? Or do they just pay for new carpet, or is there depreciation that goes into that? How does that work?
So you brought up a good word, depreciation. I think it's important for homeowners to understand, first of all, what depreciation is.
Okay.
And what it entails. Whenever you go through water damage and you receive your repairs scope of work, your estimate, there's most likely always going to be a certain amount allotted to recoverable depreciation. Sometimes clients, and you can find, a detailed explanation on your insurance estimate. But sometimes what happens is homeowners don't know, or they're not aware that this is an amount that essentially what the name says, right? It's going to be recovered. But what I think is important is for homeowners to understand that recoverable depreciation is what I would say insurance hold that amount, whatever amount it may be. Sometimes they do it percentage, age, years of the house. They hold off on this amount as a safe way to ensure that you're using the funds they're sending for actual reconstruction of your property.
Okay.
And not for
a television.
Exactly. Because they will release these funds immediately to you as soon as you submit a certificate of completion of the repairs from your contractor, as well as the final invoice on the work that was done.
Gotcha. Okay. So they implement a safety valve in there. So they're not just going to give you a flat amount rate, because they want to ensure that you're getting the materials that are affected replaced instead of buying a new TV or going on a cruise.
Exactly. And then, so going back to what you were mentioning about the carpet, I don't know too much how adjusters come to this, determination on the recoverable depreciation amount.
It's a secret formula that they don't let anybody know.
Exactly. But sometimes, depending on the condition of the carpet, also the category of the loss.
Okay.
It may be, if it's a category 3, well, obviously, category 3 is black waters.
Right.
That needs to be replaced immediately, sewage, backup, stuff like that.
Right.
So that would entail, a full replacement immediately.
Sure.
However, sometimes even when the mitigation department deems the carpet salvageable and they pull it back, they tear out the pad because at the end of the day, the mitigation department isn't going to go over what is actually needed on the scope of work to mitigate and make sure that the property is dried out.
Okay.
But sometimes on the reconstruction, if the carpet, say, is very old, it could possibly be delaminated. So it wouldn't be in good condition to be stretched and relayed.
Okay. So this is that.
Exactly. So that would be on the reconstruction, and that would entail additional documentation needed to the adjuster, possibly supplement request on, hey, you know what, this carpet is not in good condition to be relayed. We need to replace. That would be another conversation with the adjuster to have and have that approved. Now, what homeowners do need, or like what I would suggest they understand, is that this is a slow process.
Right. This is far different than mitigation.
Exactly. Construction is a slow process. And the reason it takes so long is because the way I see it, your insurance carrier wants to get things done as soon as possible. Whereas if I'm, as an estimator, when I would go on site, I would notice stuff like this. Either, let's keep talking about the carpet. I'd notice the delamination, and I'd be pushing insurance adjusters for a replacement because it is not in good condition to be reinstalled. That would delay starting the project. But at the end of the day, it would guarantee that I'm getting my client fair material replacement.
Of course.
For their flooring.
Of course, you're an advocate for the client at that point.
Exactly. Because that is what I I'm working for the client. I'm not working for the insurance carrier.
No, that's the difference between a program vendor and a non-program vendor. We're not a program vendor.
Exactly.
And you know what you're talking about because you used to work for a program vendor. So you know all too well we're an advocate for the homeowner at that particular point in time because we're not a program vendor.
Yeah.
As a result of that. All right. So now we've covered that flooring and carpet depreciation. I've got one for you because I'm sure you probably get this one as well. Kitchens. We have a kitchen failure. Cabinets are broken into terminology uppers and lowers. You have a supply line to a sink or supply line to an appliance that's failed, caused a bunch of damage. So they've got engineered hardwood floors. So the hardwood floors need to come out. But also the hardwood floors, the cabinets were built on top of the hardwood floor, so those need to come out, or it's dirty water because it came up from the drain, and those lower cabinets need to be replaced. Do insurance carriers at that particular point in time, if the lowers need to be removed, does it cover uppers and lowers on the replacement? Because you're going to have mismatched cabinets potentially if the lowers get removed and the uppers don't get touched.
That's a tough battle.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Do they want the homeowner to pay for it all or what?
Well, do they want that? Yes.
Yeah. Go
figure. That's what I would say they want. Will that happen? Sometimes it depends on the insurance you're dealing with, honestly. But I do tend to push for at least refinishing phases on at least the uppers, refinishing those to match the lower cabinets.
Yeah.
To actually bring the property back to its pre-loss condition.
So is that typically what carriers push for? Is not replacement, but refinishing?
On the uppers?
On the uppers.
Yes,
All right. Okay.
Refinishing. But it also depends if we're talking about, prefabricated.
Oh, sure. That's a whole nother thing.
That's another story.
Are
so
they real hardwood cabinets or are they prefabs?
Exactly. So it depends a lot on your carrier and but I mean, I'm big on just if you keep fighting,
right,
you're gonna get what you.
Well, I mean, what a lot of people fail to embrace, not necessarily fail to understand. Homeowners are the biggest advocates for themselves with carriers. They pay the policy, their premiums every month, every quarter, every year, and it's up to them. Homeowners can be the best advocate. What you do here is you arm the homeowners with all the proper information, documentation to ensure that they know everything that's going on within that process. All right, so now we've covered flooring, we've covered a little bit of the estimating stuff, depreciation, things of that nature. So in times of economic downturn, which is kind of what we're dealing with now, with the housing issues, with higher inventory levels and less people selling, especially in certain markets like one here. In my previous life, when I worked for different companies, in times of economic downturn, remodels tend to go through the roof. There's an uptick in remodels because houses don't sell as much. They have a homeowner that's basically been in a home for, say, coming on 10 years. They're trying to make the determination to either sell it and upgrade, or if they're going to hold on to it, now they're, if we're going to be here for another 5 or 7 years, let's go ahead and talk about remodeling. In the event that there's a failure like this, let's just say your kitchen or master bathroom, there was a failure in it, and mitigation has been performed, it's an approved claim. You have a reconstruction scope of, let's just say $20,000 to get everything back to pre-loss conditions. And it's in an isolated area, that gives the homeowner now an opportunity to potentially upgrade on a remodel scope. Run us through what that process looks like.
So I would say it's sort of a thin line having that conversation with the client.
Sure.
Because they've gone through a loss. It's a lot of, it's a big burden sometimes in their lives, what they're going through. They don't have a shower. They don't have a vanity. They don't have stuff like that. They're just thinking of putting it back together.
Right.
But they're not necessarily looking at the bigger picture.
Sure.
Sometimes there's homeowners that they are, and they're like, hey, now that this has happened, why don't we just get rid of the tub and do a walk-in shower?
It's a great opportunity.
I always tell my clients, I'm like, hey, this is a blank canvas.
Right.
You can do whatever you want.
Right.
And also what happens a lot is, say tiles removed in a shower, and they only remove a couple feet, or a couple of square feet.
To get the shower pan out.
To get the shower pan out, yeah. Homeowners tend to think that they need to find the exact matching tile to feather in or repair that area that was affected.
That's a tough one. What are the odds of them finding?
None, 0 to none. I swear to God, that does not happen because we use a third-party company both insurance and contractors use.
Okay.
It's called ITIL.
All right. And what do they do?
So what they do is you send out your flooring report, either your material. You send out your material, either if it's a vinyl plank, if it's a laminate, an engineered hardwood, tile, carpets, any material used in the house. And they provide you a report with the specs to that flooring, either veneer depth, which is the resistance of the flooring, the top layer,
All right.
plank width, length, height,
all
color, grain, everything. And at times they provide you a matching report.
Okay.
Which is if that flooring is still in the market, they can provide you the information of where to find it, right? Where to source it. In my whole time being in this industry, I've only seen one matching report.
Nice.
One.
Nice.
So what are the odds?
Slim and none.
Literally. So what I try to explain to homeowners always is you don't necessarily need to find the exact matching. Like don't get stuck on it. Yeah. You're most likely almost always going to get a full replacement to the tub surround, to the bathroom tile floor.
So insurance carriers will usually green light a replacement.
Yes.
Okay.
So that tends to happen a lot. Same situation happens with, for example, this is a little bit more into detail, but like shower doors.
Yeah.
Shower doors. If they're custom built, they are very expensive. So, the possibility of the same shower door that was removed not fitting with the new tile is very high because those shower doors are measured and built exactly to the space needed, right? Because they need to be properly sealed to avoid any water damage.
Yeah, water intrusion.
And so what happens a lot is they are most likely always gonna, they won't approve it at first. They'll always want you to reinstall your shower door. But the thickness of the tile is most likely gonna change.
Sure.
So you're most likely gonna get a new shower.
Right.
Now, does it necessarily mean it's gonna be, say you had a tub and you want to do a walk-in shower? I would use this time to at least get a quote to see what it would be.
What could it hurt to at
if
least
it's something, if it's something you've already been thinking about, might as well.
Yeah.
You can do it. It's something you can do. It's an upgrade. And
sure. And so that's a golden opportunity to make some lemonade out of some lemons. You've had a water event that happened in your house with water intrusion. You've paid a plumbing bill in order to identify and address the source. You've had to open up an insurance claim. Mitigation is taking place, so it's kind of has your house in a state of disrepair. You're getting estimates for reconstruction to get your house back to pre-loss, and so that is on the upside. Making lemonade out of lemons is having the homeowner to educate them in the process to potentially have a scope of work done that's going to upgrade their home. And because their house is already in a state of remodeling, whatever the room may be, they could potentially, take a little off the top because of the insurance claim. And so you could potentially be taking, 10, 15% off of what a remodel would look like, depending on what the scope of work is on that.
It's just important for homeowners to know that when they go through water damage, they don't necessarily need to stick to what they had.
Right. Again, the whole goal of a carrier is to get it back to pre-loss. So they're doing their scopes on that. You're not stuck in that framework of having just to do that.
Exactly. So if you've been thinking about doing that flooring replacement, this is the best time to do it.
Yeah, you can expand.
Because you need to think about a lot of things that entail having these upgrades done.
Sure.
That sometimes clients don't think about, say, contents. You have water damage. You have your contents moved out. You already have storage.
Sure.
You already have the labor to move. And this is like doing a full pack out, right? We're doing a full pack out. This
continuous
is expensive
flooring,
labor.
Your living room furniture has been moved and everything else.
So and it's expensive labor. It's like as if you were moving.
Sure.
If you've ever moved, it's expensive.
Sure.
So you have this taken care of. The time is the same. There's no change in timelines. Flooring it takes whatever time it takes to, to have replaced. So if you've been thinking of, going from carpet to vinyl plank, now's the time to do it.
Right.
So
Right. It's a golden opportunity to get some stuff done that you probably have maybe thought about, but really weren't in a position to do it. And now that all of these steps have been taken, you may as well maximize that opportunity.
It's just like a silver lining.
I know. And again, the insurance is going to pay for a certain percentage of it just by the nature of getting it back to pre-law. So you may as well entertain the idea of getting some stuff done that you've always wanted to get done. Can I ask you to explain that process and what it actually looks like of expanding the scope past getting it back to pre-loss? What kind of dialogue needs to happen as far with the homeowner with the carrier or you with the carrier? What are we looking like?
I have when there's rehousing in the claim, but it's mostly just, hey, homeowners decided to change their flooring. We're not going back to X flooring they had. We're doing this. Timelines are the same.
How does it work whenever you're in, say, my home and I've had a failure in the house and I really haven't necessarily thought about an upgrade on a kitchen remodel or a master bathroom, and I just say, hey, get it back to pre-loss. So because I'm not really thinking on a bigger scale, what does it look like on your end? How does that work?
So when I first walk in, I typically walk into a client's house once, equipment's been picked up. Everything is a little bit more quiet. So
The trauma
mitigation, yes.
Taken.
It's not over now, but like there's a little pause, right? In getting things done. And this is where I have these conversations with the clients. Hey, you used to have carpet. Are you still interested in having carpet in the bedrooms, or have you given any thought on vinyl plank, laminate flooring? That's when the clients don't even know that's a possibility.
Sure.
So they start thinking, hey, maybe this could be. I always obviously give them, a heads up on this could entail an out-of-pocket expense. Why? Because although you can find a good vinyl plank that's the same cost of what you had, the labor is different.
Right.
The labor is different. The scope of work changes a little bit in regards to, say they remove carpet. They don't touch baseboards when they remove carpet if they weren't affected. However, for vinyl plank or for engineered or laminate flooring, they most likely will either detach the baseboards, install the flooring, and reinstall the baseboards, or install the flooring up to the baseboards and cover up, add a quarter round, right?
Okay, yeah, cover up the reveal.
So this is obviously gonna either increase the scope of work because you're adding quarter round, you're adding to repaint the baseboards, stuff like that. There's obviously differences in pricing, but it doesn't hurt to. I always offer the additional estimate, the additional scope of work. Maybe as, hey, take a look at it. You see if this is something you'd want to move forward.
Right. This is what the initial scope is to get it back to pre-loss. There's an additional scope of work with an estimate tied into after that. That way you differentiate between, for the carrier and for the homeowner, to eliminate confusion. This is what it is to get back to pre-loss. If you want to upgrade and do the stuff based on the material selection, this is what it looks like.
Exactly.
Additionally.
If there's a point where I need to negotiate with the insurance carrier, I will do that.
Okay.
I'll make the necessary changes, and then I'll make those, if said changes apply to the upgrade estimate, I'll do that as well. But essentially, I always present to my client both options, sometimes even 3 options when they want to see what it's to do carpet, what it is to do vinyl plank, and what it is to do tile.
Nice.
Because sometimes they just want to tile the whole house.
Right.
So when I do that, I always just explain to the client, hey, once you have, your replacement cost value, which is what the insurance is going to pay you on, your out-of-pocket expense would be the difference between this new scope of work and what your insurance has paid.
Gotcha. Typically on the construction side of things, so mitigation, like I said, that's been fast-tracked. Reconstruction takes a little bit more time. From a monetary standpoint, what do typically homeowners need to anticipate on payment stuff? Do they have to put any money down, percentages as far as for procuring the building materials, or is it all due at the end? How does typically it work?
So on the insurance perspective, they'll typically always receive the funds directly from their insurance.
Okay.
That is what we are very accustomed to seeing. It's very rare that carriers issue payment directly to us.
Okay.
So then Once they receive the funds, we work directly with the client. Once we have an aligned scope of work, we sign a contract with a substantial completion date.
Okay.
Obviously the total amount of the scope of work and the initial 50% deposit, which is needed.
So 50% of whatever the estimate is what's going to be needed.
What we need to get started. And this involves, material procurement. We order any material that may be needed. We do require all the material to be on site prior to starting the job.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, what helps with that is just streamlining everything.
For sure. It ensures that you don't install the wrong sink, say, in a kitchen or something like that.
In the kitchen, exactly, something like that. It's just smooth to, get in, demo anything that needs to be needed to be demolished prior to starting, and then have the crews go in. We tend to be pretty quick in doing our work. We are very quick. I do have to say that.
Again, the whole point is once you get the recon started, it moves fairly quickly. It's that lag time that homeowners get frustrated with, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
From when mitigation is completed to the time where you're swinging the hammer for the first time on the install. It's that lag time.
Yeah, and homeowners are always surprised when they ask what our availability is to get started.
Right.
And I always tell them it's usually between 3 to 5 business days from contract signing. However, I do explain to them that to get the contract signed, that's where the delay is going to be. And it's mostly always, honestly, going to be a delay on the insurance carrier approving the scope of work.
Right. Because the insurance carrier at that point, the emergency point that's time sensitive is mitigation.
Yeah. But once contract signed, we tend to get them scheduled between 1 to 2 business days, and
nice.
Work is done pretty quickly.
All right. Thanks for joining us, Anna. The information is valuable. Again, the whole goal here is to educate homeowners on what this process looks like. So thank you, and we'll see you next time.
That's a wrap on this episode of Restoration 101. Whether you're dealing with damage right now or just getting ahead of it, we hope you're leaving with something useful. Subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if we earned it, leave us a review. It helps more people find the show. We'll see you next time. This is Restoration 101, brought to you by Restoration 1 of Austin.